Hello and welcome to this London History Day video all about Billingsgate, Roman House and Baths. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Biddulph and I'm joined by two of my colleagues. Howard, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm Howard Benge. I work with Kim and Andrew. You'll meet in a moment. We run the Billingsgate Bathhouse together. Andrew?
Hello, I'm Andrew Lane. I work at the Guildhall Art Gallery and London's Roman Amphitheatre.
And at the Bathhouse too. So we all are the team that kind of opens up Billingsgate, Roman House and Baths to the public when we're allowed to open, and we're not at the moment. So we thought we would take you on a virtual tour of the Bathhouse. Now, the three of us have all got backgrounds in archaeology, so this is why we kind of do this job, but we'll try and make the archaeology more understandable. Billingsgate Roman House and Baths is in the City of London, and it's actually looked after by the City of London Corporation. That's who we work for. And at the moment, we're part of a bigger team called Our City Together that is bringing together organisations in the city to share cultural events and programming and arts online at this time. So whereabouts is Billingsgate Roman House and Baths in the city? Well, I've got a nice little map here to show you. There you go. So this map shows the purple line all the way around where the Roman city was, overlaid over the modern city, as you can see there. You can see some of the upstanding purple buildings like St. Paul's, and then all of the flat purple squares and circles and other shapes are some of the Roman sites. Andrew, do you want to talk us through a couple of those Roman sites?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I should just mention that there was also a little bit of Roman London south of the Thames as well, for anyone that's living south of the river. But most of it and the important public buildings were on the north side of the Thames. And you might just be able to see the Bathhouse. It's along the line of the river, just north of the river, about 2/3 of the way along the river towards the Tower of London. So we've got the Bathhouse there, very important site, close to the river, very, very close to the river, as you'll see in a couple of minutes, but also quite close to another big important public building, the Roman Forum Basilica, which is just north of the Bathhouse, and you might be able to see it on the map where it's been marked out as a big square building. So that was the heart of Roman London. That's where the markets would have been, and it was also the seat of the administration. So another big public building. Just to give you some idea of the scale, we think that Roman London would have been about a mile across and just under a mile deep. So it goes from in the east, the Tower of London, and to the west, just the other side of St. Paul's Cathedral. And then it would go back just about to the Barbican, for anyone that knows this part of the city.
Cool, thank you. Howard, do you want to point out anything else on this map that might put it into context?
Yeah, well, there's a lot here to look at, but I think some of the main features would be the bridge, of course. So if you go back to the Forum, that big purple square in the middle, and then head southwards, can you see that dotted line that goes across the River Thames? That was the line of the Roman London Bridge. And it was very strategic, very important. Andrew mentioned there was a settlement on the south bank, and it was around that bridge. And it linked up that southeast corner of England, Britannia, to Roman London. And then, of course, all those other major roads that went out from Londinium, roads up north to York and Lincoln, roads west as well. But other buildings within the city. If we look up in the northwest corner, you can see there's another big square, which is the Roman fort. And next to that, a very important building, of course, London's Roman Amphitheatre. But right in the middle, something else you can visit today, when, of course, it will be opening its doors again eventually, it will, is the Mithraeum. So there's a blue line that goes right through the middle of Londinium. That's the river, that's the Walbrook. And the Mithraeum, the temple, was just adjacent to the river, And you can just about pick it out. You might be able to see the word Mithraeum there in the centre of the map.
Yeah, lovely. Well, I think that kind of gives you an idea of where the bathhouse was. And of course, I'm going to show you a reconstruction of what the bathhouse might have looked like, and house in about AD 250, and you'll see how much closer it is to the river. So this lovely line drawing was created for us by Judith Doby, who's a fantastic archaeological reconstruction artist, and she has done a lot of reconstructions of London through the ages based on the archaeological finds. This house was about 100 years old by the time of this drawing. We decided to draw it in have Judith draw it in about AD 250. That's what we're trying to depict. And at that point, the house had just been extended and it had a bathhouse created in the courtyard. So I've got a couple of labels just to help you understand what we're talking about. So we call this bit here the east wing, because it's the easterly part of the house. Then we have the north wing of the house, and then the west wing. But it's got a question mark. Why has it got a question mark, Howard?
Because we have no evidence for it. We've got the foundations for the buildings for the east wing and the north wing, but when it was excavated, the site was completely excavated in the 1960s. No evidence of a west wing was found, but we think there was one because the Romans did build quite predictably, very successfully, very sturdily, buildings that lasted a very long time, but they did also build predictably. And it's quite usual for a house such as this to have the three wings with a courtyard in the centre. And that courtyard would be a garden or something. And this is the time I'm talking about before the bathhouse was actually built. So that area in the centre would have been a garden facing onto the river, beautiful river view, I can imagine. But just because we don't have any evidence for that west wing, it doesn't mean it wasn't built. There wasn't one. So we're going to go with the theory that there was one, and in fact it was a U-shaped building.
So that's what we asked Judith to create for us. So the bathhouse is this building in the centre, and so it was built over whatever was there before, like a garden, around 100 years after the house was built. And you can see it's linked. I'm going to just actually see if you can see my cursor. No, I don't think you can. So it's linked to the north wing. I don't know if you can just see a little roof linking that T-shaped bathhouse with the north wing there. And it's very close to the river, isn't it, Andrew?
It's incredibly close to the river. And I think it really helps to set the scene because the river, that's what Roman London is all about. I mean, that's where all the trade, all the goods that are flowing in from other parts of the empire are going to be arriving. So it would have been a really busy part of London. And we know that some people think that London was founded as a trading settlement. So incredibly important, all of this trade going on. And I think, yeah, Judith has really captured the busyness of the scene with this view.
Yeah, we know that there was a road that ran down the side of the east wing, don't we, down to the river. So you can see the carts and people on that road there. So yeah, very busy. It's not really the typical Roman house, is it, for London?
I think it would be quite a posh house. Yeah, we know that at least initially, lots of the houses were made of wood. But this is a step up. It's a stone and a brick built house, as we will see in a minute, but it's also large. I mean, this is a big, wealthy residence. It's not the average Roman. No,
and the fact that they built their own bathhouse too kind of shows that they were doing quite well for themselves. I mean, you think that being next to the river today is quite, it's quite a nice spot, isn't it? But at the time, maybe it was placed there just to be close to this wharf and all of the trade that's going on. You can see some wood being unloaded from the boats there. So this house was actually, well, I say that the bathhouse was discovered quite a long time ago, actually. It's not a recent excavation. It was actually discovered in 1848. And this is a painting by the city surveyor at the time that was in the London Illustrated News, and the London Metropolitan Archives now look after this document. And this is what the city surveyor painted. It's maybe not quite accurate, but Howard, do you want to talk us through what we can see there? I do have a little label that might help. Shall I put that up? I'll put that. So.
Yes, thank you. Labels always help, definitely. What we're only seeing parts of the overall site here. What we're looking at is half of the bathhouse. So that building that was in the middle of the courtyard, only half of it. And where Kim has labelled the frigidarium, that room there that's pointing downwards, that's the cold room. That's the bigger room of the bathhouse. And just in the foreground is a sort of a semicircular room. It's paint. Oh, there we go. Thank you. The tepidarium pointing right down to that plain beige yellowy surface. That's the floor of the tepidarium, and the tepidarium was the warm room, being tepid, of course. But what's really intriguing, what I love about this, is that the floor has been broken through, and you can just see through to underneath the tepidarium to the hypocaust, and you can make out. I can see your cursor, Kim, and I can make out some of the pillow stacks. If you can see those little layers. They almost look like, I don't know, let's compare it to biscuits or something, a stack of biscuits. But they've you can see it through that hole in the floor there. So that's half of the bathhouse. You've got the, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at the screen. You've got half the wall, the frigidarium, the tepidarium, and there's a circular structure in the middle that's coming up. It's worth mentioning this. Thank you, that's it. That's a well, and it's later. It's not Roman, it's later. So that's gone, that's not there. We won't mention it again.
No. So when this house was this bathhouse was discovered in 1848, it was actually preserved underneath a building called the Coal Exchange. So that's how it survived to the present day. Otherwise, it could easily have been destroyed. And so I want to show you a photo of it in the present day. Well, kind of the last time we were there. And it's kind of from the same direction, actually. So there you go. So this is what it looks like today. And hopefully I can help to just orientate you. So there's the frigidarium. You can see this square room here is in the same place as that frigidarium there. There's a frigidarium. And then on the left, that's the tepidarium. So the frigidarium is the cold room, doesn't have any underfloor heating, but the tepidarium does. By the way, these photos of the site were taken by a great photographer called Jamie Smith. So thank you to him. And Andrew, could you talk us through this tepidarium? We're going to focus on the tepidarium a bit more. And in this next picture, you can actually see the curved wall. There you go. So this, Andrew, would you like to talk us through what we can see here? I've got a little label again.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite amazingly preserved, I always think, when you see this room. We've got part of the original floor, which you can just see on the left-hand section, which is sitting on top of the biscuits, as they've been described. And that underneath the floor, the hypocaust, that would allow the hot air to circulate beneath the floor. We can see the materials, so the curved wall on the outside of the tepidarium, that's made of Kentish ragstone. So that's a quite nice quality stone that's travelled quite some distance to get to Roman London. And then the floor itself and the stacks, the pile, they're made of tiles. And the Romans are really organised when it comes to building. I mean, they're great builders. And what we find is lots of the components that would be incorporated within a building, they're all of standard sizes. So the bipedales, for example, bi meaning two, and pedales, feet, they are 2 Roman feet across, squared. and they are a standard size for this type of tile. So you could go to Rome, you would find bipedales made in exactly the same measurements. So yeah, a really nice insight into the Roman construction process there, and of course incredibly well preserved.
Yeah, so these bipedales are in place in situ where they were found. A few of them had become a bit loose over the years, and so are in boxes at the back of the. You can actually see the boxes right at the back of the picture, and got one out for handling, or at least a quarter of one, because they're so heavy, aren't they? These bipedales are absolutely massive. They're a bit like big flagstones, basically, but these ones are made out of clay and baked like brick. So Andrew, you talked about what the different bits of the building were made out of. So that's what I want to just point out. So the frigidarium, we can see a corner of the frigidarium on the right there, and that's made out of this Roman brick. But the curved wall of the tepidarium is made out of this ragstone from Kent. Yeah, so it's a lovely thing. We're going to be talking to Dr. Simon Elliott, whose speciality is ragstone, in a couple of weeks actually, and we'll upload that video as well. What I want to focus on next though is the tepidarium wall, that little bit there. So we're going to just focus on that. Oh, hang on. Yeah, so sorry, that little label just kind of points out on the left hand side that's the tepidarium wall, on the right hand side that's the frigidarium wall. Here we go. Howard, do you want to point out one interesting fact here?
This is the gap that the arrow's just gone to. It is really intriguing because it's the junction, let's call it, between the frigidarium wall and the tepidarium wall. It's a junction like this, and what people may have seen this already, may see it, may clock it, may realise what's happening here. They haven't been bound together, so they've been built against each other. They haven't been built within each other, so they're not bound together. And that's not particularly good building, because what happens after a while is that the forces, the gravity, the weight of the two walls, perhaps even a bit of subsidence, it depends from place to place, of course. What happens is it's not bound, it'll start coming apart, and that's that big gap that we see there. So why weren't they bound? It's because there's two different buildings, believe it or not. The frigidarium was built first, and the tepidarium and the caldarium, the hot rooms, they were built later. So that's quite intriguing. And we always think, well, why were they built different times? Did the frigidarium have a different purpose originally? And people have suggested, well, it could have been a gymnasium in a courtyard. Why not? Absolutely, an open air gymnasium, perhaps an enclosed gymnasium. It's about the right dimensions, so perhaps. And then the warm rooms were built onto it at a later date. Someone's even suggested it was a project that ran out of money, or perhaps the project manager, the builders walked off site in a huff. Who knows? But the that gap indicates that we've got two different buildings here that have been joined together.
Mm. So that's the first thing about this in this close-up picture. But the second thing actually is really interesting. And I think it was one of the things that the Victorian archaeologists, when they first came, or antiquarians, when they came and had a look at it, it kind of thrilled them more than anything, because this upstanding bit of wall of the tepidarium has got a built-in seat. So if you look closely, where the blue line is, just above that, that's the level of the seat that's indented into the wall. You can see the shadow on the left, where the bit of wall is kind of coming out a little bit further, so that you can see it's actually a little dent in there. It probably would have been plastered, maybe painted, and people would have sat in there to get and relaxed in the warm room, a little bit like a sauna, basically. We asked Judith Doby to create a picture of a couple of people relaxing in the tepidarium as well. So here it is. And we decided to have a couple of women in there, didn't we, Howard?
Yeah, that's right. And there they are, sat in that little alcove, bit of decoration around them, perhaps a door on the left of them, well, our left, and an oil, and maybe is that a sponge at the bottom as well? So the kind of things you'd have with you in a bathhouse. Now, what's interesting here is that this is a private bathhouse. Originally, people thought it was a public one, but it's not. It's a private one, and we don't really know how it was used. We really don't know. So, was it men only? Was it women only? Was it mixed? Were they friends? Were they families? Was it entertainment? Did entertainment go on here? Was it just relaxing? Business meetings? All these ideas that people think about. But one thing we did want to highlight is that, of course, half the population of London was women. Women did use this bathhouse. They're bound to have used this bathhouse. But whenever we think of Romans and Roman people, we automatically, for some reason, close your eyes, think of a Roman, open your eyes, it's probably a man you're thinking of. So we thought, let's put some women in there. And yeah, Judith created this, put 2 women in. We've got other images as well. We've got images with children, images with men as well. But yeah, this is the one we really liked.
Yeah. So we went with this, and it's lovely. Right, we're going to go over the other side of the bathhouse now and see it from the directly opposite side. So hopefully to kind of orientate you, there's the frigidarium again, and that's the square room on the left now. That's the tepidarium on the just at the back there, where those people are standing on the walkway in the distance. That's where we were looking from in the earlier picture. And this is the caldarium. Andrew, do you want to tell us why we know that this one's the caldarium, which means hot room, and the other one over the other side is the tepidarium, the warm room?
Okay, well, as I've already mentioned, the Romans think about everything when it comes to building. And if we look very carefully at this picture here, you might just be able to see in the foreground, we've got a little bit that's extended out from the side of the wall. And that, I'm sure we're going to see another view in just 1 minute, is the furnace.
Just here. There you go. I've got my little...
So that's the furnace. That's where you would have had the wood being burnt to create the heat for the baths. And of course, the closest room to the furnace is the caldarium. So that's going to be the room that gets most of the heat. And then the underfloor heating extended through the central corridor and onto the tepidarium on the other side, by which time it's not going to be quite so warm. So you have the heat focused in the caldarium closest to the furnace, and slightly cooler when it comes over to the tepidarium on the other side.
Exactly. So it's quite a clever setup, quite clever engineering. Let's have a close up of that furnace and see it face on. So that's the little furnace there with the tunnel there is where the fuel would be put in and burned to kind of heat both of those rooms. Just to go back to Judith's reconstruction that we saw at the beginning of the whole site, just so that we can orientate you again. Here we go. So that's the frigidarium. That little bulge over on the left-hand side is the tepidarium, and that's the caldarium. So can you see the furnace now? It's in the corner of the wall between the caldarium and the frigidarium. There's someone leaning over, looking to see whether the fire needs any more fuel. Can you see it? There it is. There's the furnace. Actually, Andrew, could you talk us through why do they have cold room, warm room, hot room, and all the stuff in the baths? How do they actually use it?
Okay, so we're probably used to seeing great big bathing complexes. So perhaps if anyone's visited Rome, they've seen some of the huge bath complexes you've got there, or if, of course, you've been to Bath, another equally large complex with lots and lots and lots of different rooms. And there would have been a sequence of rooms that you went through as you went to the baths. Now, our bathhouse is a much smaller version. So really what they've done is they've just narrowed it down to the key rooms. And the key rooms in a Roman bathhouse are going to be the hot room, the cold room, and the warm room. So they would have come in through the corridor to the north of the bathhouse from the main villa complex, house complex, and they would have come into the frigidarium. That's it. Well done. Thank you. Into the frigidarium. and we think that's where they probably would have left their clothes. So there may have been some shelving in the frigidarium for them to leave their belongings there. And then they would have moved into the warm room, into the tepidarium, and they would have started to become accustomed to the heat. And when they were ready, they would have moved on to the hot room. And yeah, during that process, they may well have rubbed themselves with oil or had someone rub them with oil, scrape the oil off with a strigil. They may have also been depilate, had all the excess hair taken from them. And we know that on your way round, once you'd finished, you come into the cold room, into the frigidarium, and there you would probably splash yourself with cold water from the tank. And then, if you felt like it, you'd start the whole process again. So back into the tepidarium, the caldarium, and into the frigidarium. So it's a circular route that you would have gone round.
Lovely, thank you. I like the idea of kind of you're running across the corridor from the tepidarium to the caldarium, probably wearing very little, trying to make sure that you don't get too cold along the way. Howard, this plan that we've just used to describe that, this was from the excavations from the 1960s, wasn't it? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of course it was, as you said earlier, it's discovered in 1848 when the big monumental coal exchange was built by the City of London Corporation. By the 1960s, that building wasn't being used anymore. The City of London had changed a lot. The Blitz had happened, the Second World War had happened, the Blitz had destroyed large parts of the city. And the City of London Corporation started going about rebuilding, of course it was. And Lower Thames Street was decided, it was decided that Lower Thames Street, rather, was going to be a major route, a major road going through the city and connecting the city for cars to the east and the west. And in the process of that widening of that road, the coal exchange, the Victorian coal exchange, came down, and the archaeologist at the Guildhall Museum, he was Peter Marsden, he went down with a team of volunteers and excavated the site, excavated the rest of the site, so the rest of the bathhouse, and he discovered with his team the domestic house we've been talking about, which you can see circulating in this plan, circling the bathhouse, the corridor, the furnace, the east wing, the north wing, part of the north wing there at the top. He discovered all of that. And it's, it was at that point in the late 60s, I think it was, it was 1968, he started to excavate. And that went on each season into the early 70s. But it was around this time that the site itself became scheduled. Became a scheduled ancient monument, that is. People realised how important this site was for London history, for Roman London, for the city itself. So it's protected at the highest level of protection you could probably give a site. So yeah, it was the major excavation that allowed us really to understand the site and protected it for the future.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and again that it was preserved is a great thing, so that we can look after it today and keep it for the future. So we've had a look at a lot at the bathhouse because it's a really interesting bit of the whole site. But I want to show you a little bit about the house. So as Howard said, it's this bit here and along here. We don't so there would have been rooms behind this wall as part of the north wing, but we've basically got a couple of rooms from the east wing, and you can see that these were heated as well, the furnace down here, and these flues going into this room here for the underfloor heating. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to basically move to viewing point 1 on this plan and have a look over the house. So on here you can see the furnace over on the left hand side that would have heated this bit of the building, and in the little square area here, that's where there would have been some pile stacks holding up the floor. But the rest of the building would have had these jumble of little walls holding flues bringing the heat in and heat out. I know they're a bit difficult to see, so I want to give you some labels. Andrew, do you want to talk us through these flues, maybe?
Absolutely. It's quite a complicated bit of archaeology when you look at it. Every time I go down there, I have to sort of, take another look at it and think, what is going on here? And possibly the best way to look at this is to look at down in the left-hand corner. We've got a little bit of the original flooring, which is still in place.
Oh, I've got that. I've got a little thing for that, but that's not for a while yet. So in that little orange oval, that's where the flooring is. Let me go back now. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the original floor. Everything else is going to be underneath the floor. What we can say is that just like the villa itself, this is a large room. So I think it's approximately 6 meters across. So not only do we have a large house, but we have a large house with large rooms. And you might be able to see just around the edge of the room, we've got some really nicely built stone walls.
So that's the black line there.
And then underneath the floor, so underneath that floor section that we can see, we've got the flues, which Kim's just said, we're taking the hot air out and bringing the hot air into the room. So the system of central heating for this room.
Yeah, so this one is the one that brings the heat in from the furnace, and these ones are the ones that take it out. And they weren't just channels, were they? This one here that I've just highlighted has its original tubulae there, doesn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, really nice box tiles, so hollow box tiles. Again, they would have been made in standard sizes and then fitted together, and allowed the hot air to circulate underneath the floors. So a really nice mechanism.
Yeah, and then up the inside of the walls to the eaves, to come out as chimneys at the eaves. And it's interesting because it's kind of like you don't just have one fireplace with one chimney that goes up to the roof. It's the furnace kind of brings all of that smoke and hot air through the house and through the floor in loads of directions up the walls, so that the floor and walls would be heated with all that hot air. But also it had to get rid of it. It had to continually circulate that. Otherwise, the build-up of the combustion gases would not be healthy for anyone in the house. So it's a really amazing system. Andrew mentioned the outer wall, and Howard, that's made of ragstone again, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. You see, it's quite a thick wall. If we just look at the one in front of us, as in the foreground, so at the bottom of the picture, that you can really see it well there. This outer wall. Basically, it's two walls. It's Kentish ragstone. It's two walls. There's built like this, and then infilled with rubble. And if you look at the bottom left, can you see there's a layer of tiles going through the whole of the wall? Earlier, I was talking about how if you build two walls together, they'll separate because of the forces and gravity and so on. Well, this layer of tiles actually binds those two walls together. So that's what should have been done in the bathhouse, really, if it was built in one go. But you've got it there in that picture. So you've got a layer of tiles going through it. And what else is wonderful about this wall is that it's what we're looking at is the outside. It's been faced. And the wall itself, all the stones, the ragstone within that wall, facing outwards, they're all nice and smooth. They're all in a line. They've been designed to look good. They're not utilitarian. They're not something people aren't going to see. That's the wall people are going to see, because just beyond that, in front of us, right in front of us, is that road going right down from Londinium to the river, the water's edge, the wharf, which, as we're looking at this picture, would have been to our left. That's where the river was, and it is today, of course. So yeah, I love that bit of wall there, because you can see the course of tiles, but you also can see the facing of that wall, which would have made it look pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back to the floor surface, just inside that corner there in that little orange oval that I've drawn on the picture, can you tell us a bit more about that floor surface, Andrew?
Yeah, so it's a type of floor surface you find in lots of Roman buildings, and it's made of crushed up pieces of Roman tile mixed with Roman mortar. So it gives you quite a nice sort of waterproof surface, but also a very durable surface. And it could be polished, so it could look quite nice when it was finished.
But it could have also been the base for a mosaic, couldn't it?
It could have been, yeah.
And this room is a really big room. As you said, it's like 6 meters square, isn't it? So it's probably going to be a big reception room in the house, or a dining room or something like that. So it might have been that once the bathhouse was built, this was the first room that you came to as you came in through a doorway that's basically on the left of this picture, probably over here somewhere. This little room first as a little kind of hallway, and then into a big important room, probably. There's a very much smaller room that I'm going to show you briefly. And can you see this walkway here? It's just on the other side of that, but we're still in the east wing, and so it's just north of this big room. So you can see again, it's a heated room. It's got its the bottom of those pillars, and this is the outer wall that links up to that big outer wall that Howard was talking about. And then this is an internal wall. So the whole room hasn't been excavated, as you can see. There's still some layers of archaeology at the back there. So we're not sure exactly the size of this room, but it does look like it's a bit smaller than the other room. So it might be a little retiring room, or maybe a bedroom or something like that. Something a bit smaller and more private. So that was a virtual tour of the entire place, really. What I'd like to finish with is the reconstruction by Judith Dobie, but this time we're going to show you the full colour version, which is quite spectacular. There you go. So there are a few things on there. You can see, just jump in with anything, guys. You can see one of the things I really like is the smoke coming from the chimneys at the edge of the building rather than at the apex of the roof. That's what we thought that was possibly how the flues would come up out of the house and into the eaves, and then come out through the chimneys there. What's your favourite bit, Howard?
I think it's, well, something overall about it. It's the colour, but the colour brings out the site, really brings it to life. But there's also a lot of texture in there. The line drawings that Judith had done, what we've been looking at before now, were preliminary drawings, they were line drawings. But what I love about this is the texture you get on the roof, the texture of the roof, the texture and the colour of the walls, the doors. Yeah, I think that really brings it to life for me, I must admit.
I think also this, the side of the east wing here with these lines of red tiles, that's that you were talking about.
My favourite wall, yes.
Yeah, that's your favourite wall. This little bit down here is your favourite wall.
That's right.
Andrew, what do you like about this, or want to point out particularly?
Well, I think it's a great reconstruction, and it's very atmospheric. I'd just like to point out something. It's just something I've thought of looking at it now. We've got lots of windows within this reconstruction, and of course, one of the interesting finds from the excavations themselves was lots of Roman window glass. So we think there would have been glass, perhaps within the bathhouse, definitely, but perhaps also some of the windows within the house itself would have been glazed. So again, showing the status of this residence.
Yeah, because windows were not always, well, they sometimes had things in them, but not often glass, do they?
No, that's right. So here, yeah, they were elite. They had the best. So the glazed windows, and of course that's particularly important in the bathhouse, because if you've got rooms that you're trying to keep the heat in, then you definitely need something on the windows to keep that heat in. And the glass, it probably wouldn't have been see-through. It would have been opaque. But yeah, it would have worked well and allowed just about enough light into the room itself so that you could see what was going on.
Yeah, we might do another video where we talk a bit more about all the finds from the site, actually, and we can show you a picture of some of that glass in that video, so that'd be really nice. So thank you so much, everyone, if you've got to the end of this video because you're so interested. We have shown you this little bit of the house in the archaeology in the blue oval, and the rest of this reconstruction is more speculative, but Roman buildings are quite similar, built all the empire over, so that's why it's reconstructed like this. So I want to say thank you very much. If you do have any comments or any questions for us at all, we will be doing more videos like this and we can answer those questions in the videos. We are also talking to some colleagues from other organisations like Jane Siddell, who's the Inspector for Ancient Monuments. I've mentioned already Simon Elliott, who's done a lot of research on ragstone in particular, and a couple of other, and we're talking to Judith Doby as well, the reconstruction artist. So if you've got any questions for them, also let us know. You can do that by going to any of these sites on the screen. If you go to cityoflondon.gov.uk/Bathhouse, then it'll take you to our webpage. There is a link to an email address on there. If you're on Twitter, you can find us at LDN for November Roman Baths. And then if you're on Facebook, you can like us and follow us and send us messages if you search for us at Billingsgate Roman House and Baths. Thank you very much. This has been our first video that we've recorded, so and we're all doing this from home. So thank you for bearing with us, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.